Marilyn Monroe was the most famous woman in the world.
One of the most famous stars in Hollywood history is dead at 36.
But her story ended before it was ever meant to begin. In the summer of 1962, Hollywood's brightest light flickered out behind a locked bedroom door in Brentwood. Newspapers called it a tragedy. Fans called it the end of an era. And for decades, her name has been spoken like a myth. Part glamour, part ghost story. But imagine this. What if that night had gone differently? What if Marilyn Monroe had survived? Not as the tragic symbol we remember, but as a woman who rewrote her own legend. This is the story of what might have been, if Hollywood's most fragile star had lived long enough to become its strongest voice. By the early 1960s, Marilyn Monroe wasn't just famous, she was fame. According to biographer Donald Spoto, Marilyn's visibility was so complete that she could not leave her house without global headlines following her. Born Norma Jean Mortensen, she had risen from foster homes and factory work to become the world's ultimate fantasy. Every magazine cover carried her face, every studio wanted her name on the poster. Yet beneath the platinum hair and practice smile, Marilyn was quietly drowning in loneliness. Behind closed doors, she was a woman desperate to be seen as more than a body. She studied acting with Lee Strasberg, read Dostoevsky, and scribbled poetry between takes. But Hollywood wanted simplicity, not depth, and every time she tried to reinvent herself, the system reminded her who she was supposed to be. That contradiction, adored and objectified, powerful and powerless, was Marilyn's greatest tragedy. But what if it became her redemption? August 5, 1962. The world wakes to breaking news. Marilyn Monroe is dead.
Marilyn Monroe is mourned by the world, particularly by a host of veterans of the Korean War.
According to the official Los Angeles County Coroner's report, the cause was a probable suicide. The phone records, the sleeping pills, the strange gaps in the timeline, all fuel for endless speculation. The world mourned the woman it thought it knew, but nobody really understood her. But in this version of the story, something changes. The housekeeper knocks a minute earlier. The ambulance arrives in time. The world's most photographed woman survives the overdose. And when she wakes, fragile, trembling, alive, she isn't the same. The cameras circle, the tabloids swarm, but Marilyn stays silent. For the first time, she chooses to live privately. Her recovery becomes her rebellion. According to one Paramount publicist in this imagined account, the studio was terrified. Not because she almost died, but because she might come back stronger. Hollywood had just met a Marilyn it couldn't control. By 1963, Monroe's unfinished film Something's Got to Give was a public disaster. Studios were prepared to write her off completely, but when she recovered, the public sympathy was overwhelming. Letters poured in by the thousands. America wanted its goddess back, one studio executive later admitted, so they gave her another chance, reluctantly. She returned to the screen, leaner, quieter, and radiating something new: truth. The first film after her recovery wasn't a comedy or a romance, it was a drama, a story about survival. Critics were stunned. "This isn't the Marilyn we remember," wrote one reviewer. "This is the woman we never knew existed." Her acting was raw, unguarded. She spoke slowly, carefully, as if every word had been purchased through pain. And for the first time, Hollywood began to see her as an actress, not just an icon. But success comes with its own shadow. The same press that pitied her now wanted to see if she'd fall again. According to insiders, magazine editors offered triple rates for post-recovery exclusives. She refused them all. She'd played the game before. This time, she was rewriting the rules. The world changed, and so did she. The 1970s were the decade of liberation, second-wave feminism, counterculture, and rebellion. The Hollywood that once packaged her in sequins and studio lights was now producing gritty realism, and Marilyn fit right in. Film historian Sarah Churchwell once wrote that Marilyn longed to be taken seriously as an actress, not as a symbol. In this alternate timeline, she finally gets that chance. She takes smaller, daring roles. Independent films, character dramas, even television cameos. Directors see her differently now, not as decoration, but as depth. Her once fragile voice carries conviction. By 1973, she's on stage beside Gloria Steinem, speaking about women's rights and media objectification. The crowd roars, half in disbelief. The woman, once defined by male fantasy, now stands as her own authority. "Don't call me a survivor," she tells one reporter in this imagined future. "Call me a woman who refused to stay dead." It's a line the world would quote for decades. Every legend eventually chooses: continue the myth or live the truth. For Marilyn, that choice becomes her calling. According to a fictionalized account by a former publicist, Marilyn started hosting private meetings with young actresses. Not parties, but mentorship circles. She wanted to teach them how to stay sane in a business designed to break you. She champions mental health awareness before the term even exists in Hollywood. She funds women-led projects, quietly produces films under an alias, and speaks candidly about therapy, addiction, and self-worth. By the late 1970s, she's less a star and more a symbol of resilience. She appears older, still beautiful but weathered, proud of the lines on her face. When asked about aging, she smiles. "You only lose your beauty when you stop fighting for your spirit." In this alternate history, Marilyn Monroe becomes what she always wanted to be: a human being allowed to evolve. And because of that, the industry itself begins to change. Imagine Hollywood in the 1980s with Marilyn still in it. The studios are shifting toward realism, women are claiming more creative power, and the word diva begins to mean authority instead of problem. Film critics of this imagined era argue that her survival accelerated Hollywood's acceptance of complex female characters. Roles written for men start being reimagined for women. The era of Meryl Streep, Faye Dunaway, and Jane Fonda unfolds alongside a still-working Marilyn Monroe, their quiet mentor, their living cautionary tale. According to one veteran cinematographer, if Marilyn had survived, the 1980s would have had its own golden matriarch, the woman who proved beauty could grow older. She appears at award shows occasionally, never overdressed, always luminous, her laughter steadier now. Younger stars call her Mother Monroe. When tabloids ask if she regrets anything, she pauses and answers softly, "I regret not forgiving myself sooner." Even survival has its cost. Psychologist Yves Laplante once wrote that Marilyn's identity was built on the need to be adored. Surviving fame might have been its own kind of prison. In her 60s, Marilyn retreats from public life. Fame had kept her alive and almost destroyed her. Now, she chooses silence. She lives near the ocean, surrounded by books, her beloved dogs, and the rare comfort of anonymity. Every now and then, she gives a quiet interview to a trusted journalist, reflecting on the strange burden of being remembered by a face rather than a soul. One quote from this period becomes legendary. "People used to ask what it's like being Marilyn Monroe. I never knew. I was just trying to be Norma Jean." It's a haunting admission, but a peaceful one. She's found the balance between both worlds, the myth and the woman. And for the first time, she's free. By the 1990s, Marilyn Monroe is no longer a tragic figure. She's an elder stateswoman of Hollywood. She mentors new actresses like Julia Roberts, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Nicole Kidman. She co-produces films about women's inner lives, breaking stereotypes she once embodied. Her autobiography, Becoming Norma Jean, becomes a bestseller. According to a former studio publicist, Marilyn would have grown old beautifully. Not quietly, but gracefully. Her death finally comes not from scandal or mystery, but from peace. An old woman surrounded by friends, holding the hand of the world she helped heal. In this alternate world, there are no candlelight vigils at 36, no conspiracy theories, no frozen-in-time photographs, just the gentle truth. She lived long enough to outgrow her legend. Marilyn Monroe didn't get to live this story. In our world, she remains forever 36, immortalized in white silk and tragedy. But the possibility of what might have been reminds us that her greatest role was never on film. It was the unfinished story of a woman trying to become herself. She might have changed Hollywood. She might have changed us. And in some ways, she still did. Because every generation rediscovers Marilyn not for her beauty, but for the glimpse of humanity she left behind. The quiet message that even in the brightest light, there's always room for redemption. So tonight, as her image still flickers across old television screens and classic films, remember this. She wasn't just the woman who died too young. She was the woman who might have lived forever.